Camera falling over. Hello. If you're new here, subscribe if you want to. I thought to do my birth stories because I've got 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and on my blog and my vlog I refer to them by their nicknames, not their real names, for no other reason than the fact that in real life sometimes I call them by their real names, sometimes I call them by their nicknames, and I thought I've got to decide on one, otherwise people are going to get confused. So these aren't their real names, these are the nicknames. Anyway, I won't go into too much detail about it because I think that's a completely different video, but I suffered from infertility for many years. It was a long hard road to get pregnant with a viable pregnancy, or to get pregnant at all. So when I got pregnant with my oldest, Pudge, who's 8, I was 22 when I got pregnant with him, and I was 23 when I had him. But like I say, it's been a long hard road to get pregnant. So on the 12-week scan, they said that because it had took me so long to get pregnant, I needed consultancy care. So I needed like extra care. So we went to see the consultant after the scan. She was very rude, but then that's another story. And she didn't understand why I was there. She was like, you're a healthy weight, you're a young age, your baby seems healthy, I don't understand why you're here, you don't need consultancy care, off you go. And because I was very young and naive, and it took so long to get this baby, that I was so frightened of the slightest thing going wrong. I was so frightened it was all going to be taken away from me again. I was disappointed. I was like, I want the extra appointments, I want the extra scans, I want all the extra fussing. So I was disappointed. But anyway, midwife led care, uneventful pregnancy. It's the only thing that marred it really was my constant worry something would go wrong because I'd waited so long for this. Anyway, my due date was the 14th of November, which was me and the husband's wedding anniversary, so before that's a special date. But then on the 9th of November I woke up and the bed was wet, and I thought I'd wet myself, and I was very embarrassed. Didn't realise it was my waters breaking, because obviously I'd never had a baby before, and on telly and in films normally the water breaks is loads of water and straight away they're in labour. So I thought, I'm not in labour because nothing hurts, nothing's going on, it's only a little bit, I've wet myself, oh no, I've wet myself, and I was mortified. So I didn't realise I was in labour. And then the next day, on the 10th of November, the husband was already at work because he was a chef then, and he did breakfast, so he started at like 6 in the morning, he'd already gone. And I woke up and my belly hurt, and the bottom of my back hurt, and it kept coming and going, and I kept thinking, oh, hurts, and I rung my mum because I was meant to go see my mum on the bus, and I rung her and I said, I don't think I'm able to come because my belly hurts. Belly hurts, back hurts, pains keep coming and going. Didn't realise it was labour, because I thought labour, because I'd never done it before, I thought labour hurt in your private, and I thought it'd be really bad, and this wasn't really bad. And my mum was like, you're in labour, doc. I was like, oh, okay. So she come down and sat with me. We rung the husband and said, I'm in labour. His boss wouldn't let him go straight away because there was only my husband in the kitchen and the boss behind the bar, because it was a Wetherspoons and a pub, and it was really busy, so he didn't let him go straight away. When he did get home, we had no means of getting to the hospital, so we had an ambulance which come, took me to the hospital. Got there, I'm still thinking, because everybody was going, oh, your first baby's gonna really hurt. I'm still thinking, this doesn't hurt as much as people make out. So we got there, this really rude midwife, who I'm glad was not my midwife when I was in labour, because nobody wants somebody like that when they're in labour. This really rude, brusque midwife pretty much yanked my trousers down and had a look. 10 centimetres already, dilated, fully dilated, straight up to labour ward. There was 5 other women giving birth at the same time as me, and they were really rushed and run off their feet. So they just left me and the husband to it for about half an hour. I was on his own. And then I said to the husband, the baby's coming, it's coming. It still didn't hurt really bad. In fact, none of it hurt really bad until it come to the pushing part. And then it felt like a lighter had been put into my bits. It was horrendous, but it was really easy till then. So the husband pressed the thing on the wall. Midwife comes running in, a trainee midwife come running in. She was like, oh, right, I'll go get somebody. Oh, it's too late to get somebody. She delivered the baby, and she was really kind, really nice. So she delivered the baby, Pudge, and he was £7.7, and he was tiny and lovely and beautiful, and I couldn't believe it. And it took me a long, long time to stop worrying about him. I was so worried that he'd be taken away from me. But anyway, so trainee delivered him. Then the proper midwife, who was a really odd-faced woman, come in and had a massive go at the trainee in front of us. And I know the trainee probably shouldn't have delivered the baby. She probably should have pressed the emergency button at least, but she couldn't leave me, and she'd been excellent. And this trainee, the proper midwife, had a really bad go at it, and that's one of my regrets in life. I wish I'd said something in that trainee midwife's defence, but I'd just given birth all over the place, very young, didn't say anything. So yeah, so that was my first labour. And then my second child, Beanie, another boy, I got pregnant with him when I was 24, had him when I was 25. The pregnancy, I did not look like I was pregnant till I was about 20 weeks. And then as soon as we found out it was a boy, I just went, and I pretty much put on about 4 to 5 stone really, really quickly, which I've still not lost at all. Put it on really, really quickly. And my mood just dropped, and my ankles were massive, and it was getting like I was out of breath walking up the stairs, and I was in a bad mood and depressed all the time. And at the time I thought it was because we had financial worries and we had marital problems, to be perfectly honest with you. So I just put it down to that. But when I look back, I think something else was going on with the pregnancy, something wasn't right. But I was pretty much ignored by the midwives the entire pregnancy. Nobody ever tested me for preeclampsia when my ankles swelled up, or ever said anything to me about this massive sudden weight gain or anything like that, or my mood. Anyway, I thought because my first labour was so easy, and they're meant to get easier, that this labour would just pop out. I thought it was going to be so easy. So we agreed to be filmed for a documentary series called We're Having a Baby, and it was on BBC 3. We agreed to be filmed for that because I thought labour's going to be easy, I'm going to look dead good, I'm going to look like a superwoman. But a lot of the filming that we did was of me crying about how broke we was money wise, and me just crying, going, I feel so heavy, and I've been sick again. Anyway, I think my first labour was so easy because I was asleep for a lot of it, and then I woke up in the morning and I was like, oh, I'm in labour. But this labour come on during the day when I was looking after Pudge, and I never went to bed. I should have gone to bed when Pudge did and had a rest, but I didn't, because I thought, oh, the baby's just going to shoot out any minute the baby's going to shoot out. So when we did go to the hospital at night time, I was in labour for 25.5 hours, and I wanted to push from pretty much the first hour we was there, but my waters were bulging, they would not break on their own, and the midwife refused to help me, which I found out since then that she could have helped me easily. The midwife refused to break them for me. So I was like that for hours and hours and hours and hours with this massive, because he was massive, he was £9.6, this massive baby stuck in my back, which has wrecked my back since. Since then, I've had back problems a couple of months after I had him. My disc my disc slipped in my back, and now I have to exercise or my back will go because of all that. And because I'd only had gas and air with Pudge, I didn't want anything with this baby. I wanted to have a completely natural labour. But the midwife seemed to think that was really funny and comical, and just kept trying to shove the gas in air in my face and kept offering me drugs and kept going, you get no prizes for being brave, you know. She wasn't remotely supportive, and the labour just went on and on and on and on, and I was knackered because I'd not had any sleep. I'd not rested at the beginning of the labour like you should do, because it's a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it? And my husband was either asleep on the other side of the room, or because it was the middle of the night, or when he was awake, he was stood away from me because he was filming me for this documentary, which is another mistake we made. I think that was really damaging to our relationship, and it just made me feel like I was on my own. I know somebody who refuses to have any more kids because she doesn't want to feel that helpless again like she felt when she was in labour. And I felt really, really helpless. It was a horrible labour. I know like some people's labours are a lot worse because things go wrong, but this was just horrible in the way that I felt like a paralysed animal. I felt really, really helpless. And yeah, and anyway, by the end of it, I started losing my marbles and I started screaming, and that's the footage that went on the documentary on the telly, me screaming my head off. And I wasn't screaming so much because it hurt, I was screaming because I just felt helpless, and it had been going on long enough and I couldn't take it anymore. So in the end, they did just break my walls, and as soon as they broke them, he shot out, and they could have done that hours and hours ago. Anyway, I had him stood up, which really hurt, because before then I'd been in the birthing pool. But when you've been in a birthing pool for hours and hours and hours, and they keep letting cold water out and putting hot in, you're freezing and you're like a prune. So I got out, struggled on the bed for a bit, had him, and then they broke the waters and I stood up, and that's when he come out, and I thought he'd fell on the floor, and I'm going, where's the baby on the telly footage, where's the baby? But they caught him, and that was Beanie, £9.6. It took a lot of, it wasn't until I had my next baby that I fully forgave my husband for not being there properly during the labour. And yeah, it took a lot of getting over. So then, third baby, had Bod, another boy. I got pregnant with him when I was 27, I had him when I was 28, because there's more of a gap between baby number 2 and baby number 3, because it took me that long to get over the labour. So by this point I put on all that weight when I had Bean, so I'm a lot bigger when I first get pregnant than I was when I first got pregnant with Bean. Didn't put that much weight on during the pregnancy, but because I was already big, the midwife was constantly going, you can't have a home birth because you're overweight, you've got to have this test because you're overweight, you've got to have this extra scan because you're overweight, you've got to do this and this because you're overweight. But nobody said anything to me when I was pregnant with Bean, and I think it's far healthier to start off a pregnancy bigger and not put much weight on, or a steady weight gain, than like I did with Beanie when I was slim, and then surely that's less healthy. But anyway, box ticking, like midwives do. So I knew in my mind that he was fine. He was the most active baby I've ever had when I was pregnant. He was constantly kicking. I knew he was fine. Every now and again I had a feeling, a worry that I was going to die when I was in labour, and I think that's because I'd found the previous labour so traumatic, and I thought it's just going to get worse this time. And it even got to a point where I asked the husband what he'd do if I was dying, it came down to it and they had to choose between me and the baby, because I was that convinced it was going to happen. But I knew he was fine, I knew the baby was fine. And they'd already said you can't have a home birth if you're too overweight, which I know now. You can have a home birth if you want, you just overrule them. But you've then got that thing in the back of your mind, haven't you? If I ignore medical advice, even though I know the medical advice is wrong, and something bad happens, I never forgive myself. So I was like, alright, I'll not have a home birth. But to give birth in the birthing centre at the hospital, instead of one of the proper medical rooms with the monitor on you and it's all bright lights and severe steel equipment and all the rest of it with the doctor, to give birth in the birthing centre, instead of that I had to fight the midwife, because she was like, you're overweight, and I was like, look, I've passed every single test or scan you have given me. There is no concern about my baby's health, about my health, about my weight, about protein in my urine, about my blood pressure. There's no concern about anything. This is purely on my weight why you think I can't push a baby out. So in the end I'd go to the hospital and have a meeting with somebody high up in the midwife thing, and I just told them everything I'd already told my midwife. And they were like, okay, you can give birth in the birthing centre, but if a problem arises, we want you to go to consultancy care and we want you to go and give birth in one of the medical rooms. And I was like, look, I'm not stupid. If a problem arises, I will do as I'm told, but there isn't a problem here. You're just saying because you're fat you can't do this. And then it turned out the woman I was talking to, who was now high up in the midwife thing, was the midwife I'd had with Beanie, the dreadful one. And I didn't recognise it because obviously I'd lost my marbles when I was giving birth to Beanie. And I wish I'd said something to her then about dreadful midwife. but I didn't because I just wanted to keep the peace so I could give birth in the birthing centre. Anyway, they reckoned that Bod was due on the, can't remember what date, some date earlier in December, but I knew he was due on Christmas Day because I knew when it had happened. So I knew he was due Christmas Day. I knew he wasn't overdue, even though they reckoned by their measurements he was really badly overdue. So I went to see the midwife on the 23rd of December, and she says, look, you need to be induced, which is one of my fears. Other than something going wrong, being induced is one of my fears, because I think I just want it to happen naturally. And anyway, I don't like to be interfered with. Anyway, she said, look, we can book in to be induced Christmas Day. And I was like, I have another child. I have 2 other children. I can't be induced Christmas Day. I have to be at home Christmas Day. Oh, well, a lot of people want a Christmas baby. I was like, well, they're mad then. And no. So she said, look, it'll have to be Boxing Day then. So I agreed, really, really reluctantly, because that's what you do until you go spineless and you just agree with what they say because you're frightened that if you don't agree with what they say, something dreadful will happen to your baby, even if you know in your heart it's wrong. So I says, all right, I'll be induced Boxing Day, but I was so frightened on that night when I come back I was going to be induced on the 23rd of December. I think that's what brought it on, the labour. The husband had gone to bed because he has funny sleep patterns because of his work and that, so he'd gone to bed. The other 2 children, Pudge and Bean, were already in bed, and I sat watching telly, and I sat watching like a comedy drama about the making of the sitcom Dad's Army, and I laughed, and and it hurt. And I thought, right, that felt like a contraction, I'll time it, and it was like 8 o'clock at night. So I waited, 20 past 8, another one, 20 to 9, another one, 9 o'clock, another one. So it was steady every 20 minutes, and I thought, right, I am not doing what I did with Beanie, where I didn't go to bed, and then I was just burnt out by the time I gave birth. I'm going to go to bed, relax, let my body rest, let my body do its thing, so we can get through this. So I went to bed, woke the husband up. I says, look, I think I'm in labour, but I'm not really sure yet, in case it's a false start or something. So go back to sleep, I'm just telling you. So we laid in bed, and he put his arm around me, and that's how it should be, I think, to lying there with your husband while you're in labour. That was lovely. But then he got up in a bit, and he kept coming back upstairs and checking on me. And then about 1 o'clock in the morning, it got really bad, and I couldn't sleep through it anymore, and I didn't want to wake Pudge and Bean, so I went downstairs with the husband, pacing up and down the front room, and I thought, I don't want it to be like it was with Bean, I'm going to get him involved. So I was like, rub my back, and he rubbed my back and kissed me and stuff and got me some water and all the rest of it. So I felt like he was there for me that time. And we was really waiting, because we had to get my mum to come round to look after the big 2 so that we could go to the hospital. So we was waiting for a reasonable time in the morning to ring her. But then it got to 5 o'clock in the morning, and I said to my husband, I can't wait any longer, we've got to ring my mum, we've got to go to hospital, if we're going to hospital, we've got to go now. So we rung her and she come. Rung the husband's brother, because when I'd been, had another ambulance and it was horrible to us about it. So we rung the husband's brother. He come and got us, took us there, left, and before he even got home I'd had the baby, because Bod pretty much shot at her. I remember getting there, and we was walking down the corridor towards the birth centre room, and I had to keep stopping every couple of steps because of a contraction, and the midwife said we're going to have a baby in a minute. I was like, no. Got in there, I had no drugs or anything, I had a little bit of gas in there just as I was pushing him out. Pushed him out, shot out really fast. He shot out so fast he wasn't breathing, he was floppy and blue, and they put him on me, and me and the husband were like, you know, waiting for this cry that didn't come. The midwife was an older midwife with older practices, and she just went up to the baby and went on his back like that, and he went and then he breathed, thank God, and cried. And then the other 2 children, Pudge and Bean, had the injection to get the placenta out, but this midwife, older practices, without warning, she just went on my belly and the placenta come out, which my mum thinks is better, but I'd have liked some warning first. So that was Bod, and when I brought him home, we brought him home that day, because obviously by the time he was born it was now Christmas Eve, and I said to the hospital, look, I've got to be home for at least early evening, it is Christmas Eve, somebody's got to do Santa, I've got 2 of the kids. They were like, you've lost some blood. I was like, I need to go home. So I went home, So luckily Santa come and everything. Christmas Day, it was a complete blur because I was just sat on the sofa feeling like I was bleeding to death still with my baby. And obviously it's Christmas Day, so there's toys everywhere, wrappers everywhere, wrapping mess everywhere, but I couldn't get up and sort it because I felt like I was bleeding to death. The husband's doing his best trying to put together toys and cook a Christmas dinner. Midwife come, community midwife come to check us over because it's the day after I've given birth. Rung social services on us because our house was a mess. Social services come out. That completely ruined the time that we had together because that time, all I felt about that time was worry about social services coming around, you've just given birth and all the rest of it. Anyway, social services come, they were quite nice. They said basically, hello, she's just given birth and it was Christmas Day. There's nothing wrong with the house. Clearly the midwife has no understanding about people at all. And when they sent out the report, it was that thin because clearly the midwife has wasted their time. I complained to the head of the midwives, got a wishy-washy letter back apologising, but obviously nothing had happened to this midwife who caused all this trouble to us for no reason whatsoever. So after that I basically just didn't trust midwives ever again, and it was very damaging for that period of time when you're trying to bond with your newborn and everything. Anyway, so, and it put my husband off. He was like, if the midwives are like that and they ring social services on you over nothing every time you have a child, should we have another one? And I was like, look, we've done nothing wrong. Social services come and said we've done nothing wrong. It was clearly the midwife, it wasn't wired up right, it was just vindictive. So if we want another one, we'll have another one. We're not letting that stop us. So, fourth baby, last one so far. First girl, Pinky. Got pregnant with her when I was 29, had her when I was 30. Pregnancy, again, there was on about my weight, but again, the midwife, the doctors knew that was going to be awkward and asked for the birthing centre, and I basically said, look, if a problem arises, I'll do as I'm told, but if there's no problem, I want the birthing centre. You midwives are not going to treat me how you treated me last time. And I had something wrote down banning that midwife that did that dreadful thing to us when I had Bod from ever being near me, so she was not allowed near me. Yeah, so everything was fine, but they were still trying to bully me to have an extra scan at 37 weeks, growth scan, because of my weight. And I'd had one with Bod and it had been a complete waste of time, which I knew it was, because I said to him, look, he's fine. Yeah, because you weight. So I says, look, I'm not having the extra scan with Pinky because I know she's fine. I can feel she's fine. Mother's instincts, I can feel she's fine. I don't need this extra scan that's a waste of time. Yes, you do, yes, you do, yes, you do, yes, you do. No, I don't, yes, you do. No, you do. So, anyway, 1 week I went for my checkup at the doctor's and it was a different midwife because my midwife, the one I always see at the doctor's, who's alright actually, was on holiday. And she measured me and she went, oh my God, you're measuring it's so loads and loads of centimetres bigger than you should be. This baby's going to be massive, I tell you, massive. And it could be a sign of diabetes, even though I passed my glucose test. It could be a sign of that, you need the growth scan. So I come home, my husband said, look, you know you don't need it, I know you don't need it, but just go to humour them, let them tick the little boxes, and you'll have that clarity in your mind that you are right, like you did when you went with Bod. So I was like, okay, then I'll go. So I went. The husband didn't come with me, he stayed at home, watched the other 3 children, and I thought, he doesn't need to come with me because it's going to be a waste of time. So we went. So I went, they measured her, said she was measuring absolutely fine, which I knew she was, because I'd said to my mum, I can feel it. I said, she's not my smallest baby, but she's not my biggest baby, she's kind of in the middle, which she was. They said, but your amniotic fluid level's really low and that can lead to birth defects and brain damage, or you could lose the baby, you need to see a doctor. So I went to see so I laid in the pregnancy assessment unit. They had me in bed, laid down. I'm really fretting this time. I'm thinking, I was thinking, oh, I had this chip on my shoulder about my weight, and that's why I was refusing this extra treatment. Everything I've ever believed about listening to my instincts is wrong. Something horrible is going to happen. Something horrible is going to happen to my baby, and it's my fault because I wouldn't listen. and I didn't have my husband with me, and it was horrible, and I've just sat worrying. Anyway, the doctor wanted to give me an internal assessment, which I didn't want, but then I thought I'm going to have to. I've already said no to things before, and it's led to this silly girl I am. So she did it, and she said she couldn't tell anything from it. So I'd have to come back in a week's time for another scan just to check my fluid level. So I was worrying and worrying for an entire week, blaming myself. Thinking I'd lose her. Sorry. And then went back to the scan a week later. Amniotic fluid level is fine. The baby's fine. Sometimes it fills up and fills itself back up. It's fine. There was nothing ever to worry about. So I'd spent that week worrying, which was more harmful to my baby than an internal assessment I didn't need, which is more harmful to my baby than just not going when I knew I didn't have to go, which was kind of, it was good for me to realise that that my instincts were correct, but I'd been put through all that for nothing. Went to see the consultant after. He seemed to find it extremely funny what I've been through, and like silly women who are hysterical and worry. And I wish I'd said something then as well, like, I'm glad you found my pregnancy funny, but I didn't. And then he seemed more concerned about booking me in to be induced. I was like, look, I'm nowhere near my due date. I'm like 3 to 4 weeks away from my due date. I don't need booking in to be induced. I don't want to be induced, no. And I left, and then I was like, that's it. I'm not doing anything they tell me from now on, unless a problem actually does arise. So then, she was due at the end of July, but she come on the 1st of August. What happened there was, again, the night before, I had pains, went to bed, laid down with my husband, and he didn't get up that time. He stayed with me, and I thought, this is so nice. If only I could just stay here on this bed with my husband and give birth, like, without the fussing or having to worry about midwives or the nasty vindictive things they'll do, or trying to bully into things you don't want, like drugs and the rest of it. And I'm sorry for midwives that are good at the jobs, midwives that do support people, but it's the bad midwives that make you not trust any of them. So anyway, but the husband wouldn't let me give birth at home, an unassisted birth, in case something went wrong, and that's fair enough, isn't it? So again, we rung my mum come the next morning. She come the next morning, and I was very, very calm, and I was like, my mum was going, you need to go to the hospital, you need to go to the hospital, you're having your contractions every 5 minutes, you need to go to the hospital. And I'm like, yeah, but they don't really hurt, it's not that bad. And I think they didn't hurt, same as they didn't hurt my first baby, because I'd stayed at home and I was relaxed and I was calm and I felt loved, and I think that's why. So I was like, yeah, they're not that bad. My mum was going, look, you need to go. So we rung the husband's brother, he come and took us, got there. She says, oh yeah, I forgot to say, after that growth scan where they'd said she was massive and it turned out she wasn't, the next time I went to the midwife, they measured me and said she wasn't growing and she was tiny. Because I was like, you on drugs? I'm not going for another scan. First she's too big, then she's small. So anyway, I got to the hospital, they read on my notes, like, you know, I've been for these scans, low amniotic fluid, then it turned out she was alright. They said she was too big, then she wasn't too big, they said she was too little, and I refused medical advice and didn't go for another scan. She felt me and everything. This is the first pregnancy where I knew that you don't have to be examined down there if you don't want to, because I thought that you had to, because I think that does more damage than good. I don't want to know, because if you're in pain and somebody tells you that you're only like 2 centimetres dilated, that you lose your mind, don't you? So I was like, look, I don't want you to examine me, because if I feel dead near now, and if you tell me I'm not, I'll lose my marbles. So she was like, okay then. She was quite respectful then, she didn't push it. I said, I don't want any drugs. She says, okay then. Again, quite respectful, quite a good midwife this time. But then she did the baby's heartbeat, and she said the baby's heart is racing. I'm going to measure it again in a minute, test it again in a minute. If it's not racing, we'll continue. If it is racing, you might have a cesarean. So we had that worry. But I wasn't that worried, because I kind of knew she was coming now, and that's probably why her heart was racing. And then she measured it again after a bit, and she says her heart's not racing anymore, but it's going to be hours and hours and hours. So she sent the husband off to go get a drink. And while the husband left the room, the contractions come on really, really hard. And the midwife was up beside the room, just sat down, because she just pretty much said to me, you don't need me. just everything's progressing as it should be. You've had 3 natural births before, you know what you're doing, you're doing really, really well, you've got this far with no drugs, you're doing really well, just keep breathing, you don't need me. And that was good in a way, because I don't want to be interfered with. I want a midwife that only intervenes if she needs to intervene. But in another way, I thought, if I don't need it, why didn't I just stay at home and have the baby on the bed with my husband? Hello, when I was filming my birth video, it cut off the end, and I was just saying that when I had Pinky, the husband had left the room because he'd been told it'd been hours and hours and hours, and contractions come on really strong, and then and then I couldn't get comfy anywhere. You know, I couldn't lay down, couldn't stand up. I didn't want to give birth standing up, because I gave birth standing up with being it really hurt. So the midwife said, just bend over this beanbag, and I thought, I'll try it. Baby will come in, and baby pretty much shot out. The husband come back in, and she was half in, half out. So a second later he'd have missed it. So that was Pinky. And so I've had good experiences with midwives and bad experiences with midwives, and I've had 3 fast, quite easy labours and 1 horrible one. And yes, darling, you're Pinky, aren't you, darling? I'm talking about you. And my advice to anyone would be, if you're in labour, go to bed, relax, let your body rest. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Make sure there's people around that love you and will support you and make you feel like you're not on your own, you're not helpless, and will fight your cause with the midwife if they do try and push you into something you don't want. So yeah, they're my four birth stories. I'm going to go now.